most elementary schoolers don't get that many decisions in their day-to-day life. So I really think just freedom of expression has always been really important to me, and like just super empowering. Just like the opportunity to make a decision, like no matter how big or small, has always been like a source of like I can do that, like I did do that.
I remember when I was in 6th grade, I went to an all-girls school. We were like 20 girls in our class. And the theater director was like, I need an actress. Suddenly I was like, I'll do it, why not? And that moment that I was on stage playing this little boy, that was my first role, it was the most incredible feeling and I loved it. And at that moment, I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I love acting because I just feel so free and I feel so incredible when I'm on stage. Whatever character I'm playing, I get so into it that I feel I'm like in another person's body, in another person's life. One problem I've had has been that just because I speak Spanish, some people want me to audition for roles that require me to speak Spanish. And I do love that I speak Spanish. I do love my culture. And I think that if I ever had to like direct or star in a play about Puerto Rico, I would do it. But making me audition for a role that you're gonna give it to me just because I speak Spanish, I don't believe that that's the right thing because I want you to take me for my abilities, for my acting. Obviously with my accent it's hard, because some people can at the moment know, oh, she's Latina or she speaks another language, which is hard because sometimes you can't do anything about it. But when they know it after, it's so empowering because I was like, oh, she took me for my acting. She took me not because I spoke Spanish, she took me for who I am and how I was acting, which is incredible. I was in a fair, I think it was, and I met this casting director. But one thing she told me that I will never forget, it was this year, was that being a Latina is very hard in this acting world. First of all, because you could either play a Latina role or you can play an American role or whatever role you want to play. But either one, you have to change. Like, if I want to play a Latina role, she told me you have to have more accent. And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, okay. And then she told me, and you don't look Latina. You're blonde, so you have to get brown hair. And then she started telling me things that I would, or get more tan or something like that to get stereotypical roles. And if you want to be American, you have to get like classes to get your accents out and like look more American. And I got out of there and I was like, whoa. Obviously, I'm going to deal with that when I graduate. So I'm going to spend a little time figuring things out. But at the same time, it was hard because even though if I would say like, I'm not going to change to the way I am, like if I want to get in this business, she told me it's so sad because if you do want to do it, you have to change those things. And it got me so mad because I don't want to change who I am. I love the person I am. And I love having an accent. I love missing words and suddenly saying something that doesn't even make sense. I love speaking a sentence in English and suddenly turning it into Spanish. Like, why not? It's fun. But it's really sad to see how in this acting industry it doesn't work that way. So what I do is always think like, okay, there's things I need to hear. Like they're gonna come at one moment. And just sit down, rest for a minute, and then keep on going. My goals is just to act. I don't care if it's in a small company. I don't care if it's on Broadway. I just want to do it in front of an audience and help people.
I definitely have like a pretty big imagination, which I think is common of only children. I mean, there were times like when I was younger when I wish I had a sibling to like play with I also think that it has made me more independent, which like I feel like with only children can go either way. Like some only children are more dependent like on their parents and stuff. But I think that I've become very independent with that because, especially with both my parents, like working full time, when I would come home from school, you know, I would like be home by myself. I have definitely always liked like fantasy books and series. I knew that Quidditch was a thing that was like played at colleges. I didn't necessarily think like, oh, I'm definitely going to be on a Quidditch team in college. I just kind of like wanted whatever college I went to have a Quidditch team. I'm not a super athletic person. It's a full contact sport, so like you can tackle people. It's easy to forget when you're playing that it's a sport from a book series. Like some of the people actually on the team have never read Harry Potter. They just joined for the people and the sport itself. The people definitely keep me going back to Quidditch.
Most of my poems are about light, just because like light and like sunshine are like my favorite things, just because it can be like really, really harsh, but also like really, really soft. And I just like love looking at it when it like filters through different things. More often than not, like this year, like once I've finished a poem, I can like sit back and look at it and feel like really proud of it, which is like pretty awesome for me, because I've never like considered myself a writer until like this year, which has been like a nice realization. So I always feel like very like good and like whole, even if I like don't share it with anyone. I'm just like, huh, the world knows that this is here now. It's like kind of crazy to think that like you can have a blank page and then like once it's like written on, like it's in the world. Even if like I'm the only person who like knows it's in that specific notebook, like the world knows it's there.
I really love books because they like have such like transformative powers. Inhabiting other like brain spaces and like other bodies is just like such an interesting escape, but also like just being able to delve into language is just so cool, and like the nuances of word choice is like an extremely interesting thing to me, and I like love words so much. And I think what's really interesting is like when people write fiction and like are telling a story of like someone else and like how they like their process of telling that would be really interesting. I really love Toni Morrison so much. She destroys me and I love it. And also John Steinbeck, which is like kind of an interesting choice for me, I think. Like a lot of things he does really aggravate me and make me feel really bad, but I kind of love that because like I feel like I don't usually like engage in that kind of way. Like I don't like put myself intentionally in like that kind of discomfort. So when I read John Steinbeck, who also like writes beautifully, so it's like fine, I can like inhabit this like weird, gross brain space sometimes, or like really beautiful stuff too. Like East of Eden is like one of my favorite books of all time. Like classic like intergenerational like Kardashian story, but like literary. I love it.
Since I'm really into a lot of contemporary art and like minimalism in general, I am faced with like a lot of people that are like, that's not art, or like, that's bad art. I usually ask the other person questions like, tell me like why it's not art. The artistic canon has been so like religion-based and like female nude-based for so many years, and that like in the past few decades, the things that artists have done to just completely like break open the canon is so huge. I first was getting an experience in art curation when I got this internship at this museum called Dia Beacon, which is in upstate New York, and I was interning with the education department. Dia Beacon mostly has like very minimalist like paintings and sculptures and like the kind of thing that people are like, are you sure that's art? And we're like, yes, it is. So that was like my first thing with like curation. And then since coming to Tufts, I joined this thing called Polychroma, which is a curating collective. We put on one-night art openings in upperclassmen like basements. And that's been an awesome experience. I'm the youngest one on the team. Everyone's opinion is heard. There's no like president. Everyone just like pitches in. And it's just been really cool to like put all of the work and like see it come to fruition and like showcase so many amazing artists that on Tufts campus and off. Like a lot of the work that Polychroma does is like, how do we fit all of these pieces into like this setting and like this environment and like We think about like how the people come in and like the flow of people and where people might stop. Like people actually noticed and commented on how we created a certain type of aesthetic with like the lighting and like how we hung up the wall text and like small things like that. And even when those things go unnoticed, how it just like creates the overall experience, and it's kind of like playing with how people will experience the space. And even if they like don't consciously know that they're doing it, that they're like feeling these things because this group of people like made them do it. I don't know, it's just like kind of fun.
Making art to me means self-expression for one thing. Everyone hears like art being constrained to like a certain definition that's very solid. And I try to think of it as more than that, like beyond those boundaries. Anyone with an intention to send off a message and try to express that in a creative way, being really intentional in the way that you're conveying that is kind of my very, very loose definition of art. In some ways, art can just be someone putting something out there and calling it art, no matter what that is. Personally, making art to me is a lot of drawing and painting and a lot of thinking about the things that are really troubling me or interesting to me. Representation in art is very important to me, and it's something I think I'm starting to exercise in my own work. There is such a diverse body of bodies, or like group of people and things in the world. It is a form of education in like a very raw way. It will inherently have an audience, and that audience goes out into the world and has a conceptualization of the world based on these things that they're seeing that like people have put so much work into. To not have everyone seen in that realm or sphere, I think is like, would be like a really big injustice to like the world or society as a whole.
I think dancing is such a unique thing to do to your mind and body and soul. Like you're like exercising really hard and you're really like pushing your physical limits, but you're also like getting so in tune with yourself and your body, and it's really like meditative for me. Most dancers I know have like certain aspects of their personality that I feel like are kind of dancery, and I think that that just shows that like it's a pretty powerful thing to like do, especially as you're growing up. I think my first dance class was when I was like 2 years old. As a kid, I was more involved in like a very like free-form dance studio when I was a really little kid that was actually taught by one of my preschool teachers. And then when I was like 7, I wanted something like more structured and serious, so then I went to my ballet studio, which was awesome, but like a very small, very strict studio. And it was taught by a French woman, and she really like ran the whole show. She did everything, it was just her. And it was a pretty small studio, but we really were like trained pretty hard. She also was like, she was very maternal to us. Got really close with her because she was like our one dance teacher from when we were little kids until seniors in high school. Yeah, but it was very like traditional and old-fashioned in a lot of ways, which like in the ballet world can definitely be good and bad. Yeah, like I think, I don't know if it was like the studio or just the nature of like doing ballet, but there was definitely like body image stuff going on with girls in the studio. Ballet is a very perfectionist kind of thing to do, and because it doesn't leave a lot open to interpretation. Now I think it's becoming more so like that with like more contemporary styles, but my studio is definitely like old-fashioned and like this is correct and this isn't correct. And so I think that probably in both directions, like that fed into my kind of like perfectionist personality, and then also because it was like that, I kind of liked it. It definitely is like a very controlling art. I think it can go both directions. I think for some people it can maybe like kind of diminish their confidence, but I think for me it like made me more kind of like sure in myself and my body. And yeah, I really like to perform. I don't know, I just like when you've really worked hard on something for a long time, and it's just cool for it to like all come together. And I'd like the people in my life to see what I'm doing, but also more so I think just like the feeling of being on stage and all like dressed up in a tutu, stage makeup, like you just feel really like fabulous. And the fact that it is such a like physical thing to do too, you're just, the endorphins are high and the adrenaline, and I don't know, it's like kind of a high and it feels really good. Yeah, I'm still like figuring out how much I want it to play a role in my life, but I know that like when I'm dancing, I feel really good. And my grandma on my dad's side actually was a dancer, and she was like on point until she was like 60. So yeah, maybe that'll be me.
I'm feeling like I gotta move, I gotta do something, yeah. I'm feeling a spark in my mind, and it's running through my veins. Oh, I got an idea I wanna share, and I'm gonna make it happen. I don't care what they think, this one is for me. I'm gonna create something, I'm gonna be proud.